President Erdogan, a system that does not serve people has no chance of success. Turkey plans to implement its own vaccine in April 2021. President and AK Party Chairman Recep Tayyip Erdogan made statements at the AK Party group meeting. "We have come to an important place about our own vaccine. We plan to bring our own vaccine to the application level no later than April," he said. "We are starting a new mobilization of investment, production, exports, and employment in the economy after the budget talks. We will implement comprehensive reforms one by one in this direction," he said. "We are also accelerating legal reforms that are integral to the investment climate," said President and AK Party Chairman Recep Tayyip Erdogan said his party had intense agendas in both government work and party activities since the last group meeting at the parliamentary group meeting. "We need to bring down the course of the coronavirus epidemic, which is on the rise in our country together with the whole of the world, as soon as possible," Erdogan said, announcing that the provincial congresses, which they have completed 19 of them so far, will take a decongest from this week to support the epidemic measures, said Erdogan, who expressed that they are of course aware of the problems caused by the measures taken in this context, said, "If we do not prevent the course of the epidemic now, then we may have to apply much more painful measures. I expect patience and support from my nation for this. The stricter we adhere to the rules of cleanliness, mask, distance, which we refer to as OK, the less we need other measures," he said. Erdogan, vaccine development studies are now coming to the implementation stage, noting that they closely monitor all vaccines developed in China, Russia, America, and Europe, he said. "Some of them have already made pre-orders," Erdogan said. "Hopefully by the end of next month, we hope to be able to make the first applications in the vaccine. More importantly, we have come to an important place about our own vaccine. We plan to bring our own developed vaccine to the application level no later than April. In all the international platforms we have mentioned, we call for vaccination efforts not to be sacrificed to political or commercial ambitions, but to be the common property of all humanity. We also intend to offer the vaccine that we have developed ourselves in the most appropriate conditions, inshallah, to the service of all humanity. We believe that it does not make sense for individual countries to secure themselves before the entire world is free from the threat of an epidemic. For this purpose, we repeatedly emphasize the need for reform of institutions that are ineffective in solving the common problems of humanity, especially the United Nations, and ensuring the right, fairness, and justice." Recalling that they held the G20 Riyadh Leaders Summit at a time when humanity is fighting the coronavirus epidemic and with live connection, Erdogan said that as Turkey, the issue is obvious from day one, a friendly black day. He said they approached him with understanding. "We have a system of governance, let the people live, so that the state may live. We're a nation that builds on principle. According to our faith, the human spouse is a creature, that is, the most honorable of the creatures, the most worthy of respect. A system that does not serve people, does not give people peace, well-being, and value, does not provide justice and security, has no chance of success. It is possible that the current global economic architecture, based on ambition, domination, injustice, and rant, protects neither man nor nature," he said. Erdogan noted that it would be a shallow approach to link the loss of life, which goes to 1.5 million worldwide, only to the deadly impact of the COVID-19 virus. In the formation of this grave picture, the distorted structure of the global system, which now produces problems instead of solutions, deepens problems, also has its share. The epidemic has revealed both these distortions of the current order and reminded once again that all people are on the same ship. "The world is bigger than five," he said repeatedly from the United Nations podium. "It's better understood how accurate our call is. In the same way, the importance of the struggle for rights, freedom, and justice that we are waging on different fronts from Syria to Libya, from the eastern Mediterranean to Nagorno-Karabakh, from Iraq to Palestine has emerged." Erdogan, who considers Turkey to be subject to criticism or even reputation assassinations because of the steps it has taken with the axis of rights and justice, said, "Unfair. Of course, we know why these ugly campaigns aimed at our country and our person are carried out by whom. But I still see a point here. As Turkey, we never act with an expansionist understanding when dealing with the problems in our region, when expressing the injustices of the global system or intervening in crises. As I have stated on different occasions before, we have no eyes on the land, sovereignty, or internal affairs of any country. We seek only to ensure our own national security, the safety of the lives and property of our own citizens, and then to contribute to the stability, peace, and internal peace of our region and our heartland. With this understanding, we take on important responsibilities in the face of new challenges facing the international community." Erdogan noted that Turkey is the only NATO country facing dace in Syria, noting that Turkey has so far captured about 9,000 foreign terrorist fighters and sent them to their countries, despite the fact that Turkey was left alone. "We have banned almost 100,000 people from entering our country, which we have found to be connected to conflict zones. We have made extraordinary efforts to prevent crossings through our country into conflict zones. Some countries that could not seriously monitor the terrorist-related people we sent could not prevent the actions taking place on their territory. In addition, they tried to blame it on Islam and Muslims, he said. With our presence in Idlib, we have prevented a new humanitarian tragedy and a huge wave of migration. Finally, I want to express this in particular. Yesterday, 17 terrorists attempted infiltration operations in the area of Operation Spring of Peace, and they were killed by our heroic commandos. I kiss our commandos in the eyes on behalf of my nation. This is not the first step they have taken valiantly, and hopefully it will not be the last, he said. Erdogan stressed that they are ready to support every step that will lead to a quick and just solution in Syria. In this way, the United Nations-led political process has opened the way, President Erdogan said, pointing out that the country has been prevented from being dragged into further civil war by the training and consultancy they have provided to the Libyan National Reconciliation Government, he said. But unfortunately, despite our cold-blooded, patient behavior, the last time was an attack on our civilian ship carrying goods to meet humanitarian needs in Libya. This has no place in international maritime law. And this one's captain is a Greek. After entering the ship, they unfortunately harassed the civilian crew there. All of this has been detected by video recordings. Of course, these have also been sent to the necessary places, they will be sent, he made his assessment. President Erdogan, recalling that they contributed to the end of 30 years of injustice in Nagorno-Karabakh, noted. Thanks to the support of our country, the Armenian occupation of Karabakh, which is the territory of Azerbaijan, has ended, and hopes for a permanent solution have increased for the first time. The co-chairman of the Minsk group, who did not appear until yesterday or even openly supported the Armenians on this issue, has no value in the discomfort expressed by some countries about the agreement. We had the opportunity to discuss these issues thoroughly with Russian President Vladimir Putin last night. With this meeting, we discussed what steps we can take in this process. I believe that with these negotiations with Mr. Putin, especially as Russia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, we have taken steps to dominate peace in the region in this process. We also have a chance to expand and develop it further. We also discussed this expansion and development work with Mr. Putin. Apart from 3 countries, we can bring the process here to a much different position by including the 4th and 5th countries from the countries of the region. In transportation, we will deal with the transportation process from west to east, from north to south at the point of railway and land road, and thus we will provide the opportunity for our Azeri brothers to return to their territory as soon as possible. Erdogan, speaking at his party's parliamentary group meeting, said he had held a meeting with Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev. There is happiness in all of them at the moment, Erdogan said. Kalbajar was completely empty yesterday. In the next process, our Azerbaijani brothers will find the opportunity to move to Kalbajar, he said. Everyone should now determine their attitude according to the new reality in the field, take their steps accordingly, and support the process, he said. Erdogan, who noted an issue that they focused on platforms outside the G20 and in bilateral talks, continued. The mistakes of those who try to cover up their lack of common solutions to common problems by opening the way for currents of Islam hostility and racism further deepen the crises. We wish that the administrations that are trying to make the innocent pay for the painful consequences of double-standard approaches to counter-terrorism in Europe will abandon this dangerous method as soon as possible. We want it to be understood as soon as possible that the culprit is not Islam or Muslims, but the crooked order that has dominated the world for a long time. Accelerating the process of restructuring global political and economic order least lost the epidemic period, and at least they were determined to do their part to remain by the crisis, stressing that our diplomatic efforts, our strong presence in the field by supporting with ourselves, our friends, and all humanity for the best of the best, most Haqqani Yetli we will continue to struggle to make said. Erdogan said that they are acting with the awareness that the responsibility for their work, vaccine, education, and all other services along with the health of the nation is on them, and that they are trying to implement measures to combat the epidemic in such a way as to minimize production and employment. A very serious contraction in global trade expected in 2020 and 2021 understood that these effects will continue beyond the period of the year, stating that they want to reduce losses to make earnings in Turkey. The Erdogan government, businesses and workers, young and old should act together, as he underlined that with 83 million. Extraordinary periods require extraordinary efforts. President Erdogan, he said. The world and our country are going through such a period. We will not allow the epidemic to distract us from our goals and distract our attention and energy. With the permission of Allah and the support of our nation, we will overcome this successfully like many troubles. We are taking every measure needed to address the economic problems caused by the epidemic. In particular, we attach great importance to support to protect employment. In this context, both as a government and as a parliamentary group, we strive to do our part. We are launching a new mobilization of investment, production, exports, and employment in the economy. After the budget negotiations, we will implement comprehensive reforms in this direction one by one. We are also accelerating the law reforms that are an integral part of the investment climate. President Erdogan reminded that 3 judicial reform packages were adopted by parliament last year, and said that they will move other reforms that are being prepared to the agenda of the parliament. Human Rights Action Plan, by expanding the economy to increase the climate of trust, which is the basis of the final version in the shortest time that they will give Erdogan. In this context, the preparation of human rights in all segments in addition to economics, management, and business in consultation with the council indicated that they would submit at discretion. Erdogan stressed that steps appropriate to the needs arising from global developments in the economy and the epidemic will continue to be taken as needed, and said that the AK party is determined to continue its policy focused on reform and change, which it has continued uninterrupted for 19 years, in accordance with new developments and new needs. Erdogan, who stated that the nation is at the center of reform and change work, said, "What our nation expects, what it needs to achieve the goals of our country, the AK party has done it, it continues to do," said Erdogan, who noted that Turkey's biggest reform in the history of the republic is the transition to the presidential system of government, said, "When we say this, there are still those who defend the parliamentary system, there are still those who talk about parliamentary democracy. Hasn't this country tried the system for years? As we try the system for years, I ask, don't we know what our country has become with triple, quadruple coalitions? Don't we know what we're going through? I wonder if we've gone a step further. No. The system has been modified as it is now. We're traveling heavily. We have carried out this historical reform, which is 200 years behind it, together with the MHP under the roof of the People's Alliance in accordance with the hopes and demands of our nation." He made his assessment. Erdogan, who stated that the People's Alliance is the most broad-based example of political solidarity in Turkey, said, "I hope that we will implement the legal and economic reform agenda again as the People's Alliance." As Mr. Bosley stated, this alliance is never based on secret or open negotiations. The only purpose of this alliance, which our nation established with its blood on the streets and squares on the night of July 15, is to bring our country to the goal of a great and powerful Turkey, he said. In his speech at the parliamentary group meeting of his party, President Erdogan said that the proof that they do not have the slightest problems in favor of democracy, human rights, law, justice, and freedoms is their 18-year history of power. Erdogan, who stressed that they have solved all of them one by one, which segment has a problem in this country, said, "We have eliminated centuries-old demands, centuries-old problems, centuries-old omissions. From the westernmost to the easternmost, from the northernmost to the southernmost, did we, as a government, leave a place where we were not entered as a state? We stepped everywhere. In education, health, justice, safety, transportation, energy, agriculture, we have thrown everything you can think of," he said. Erdogan, who expressed that they increased the number of airports in Turkey from 26 to 56, said that the number of universities also increased from 74 to 206. "We wanted our sons in Hakkari no longer to get up from Hakkari and come to Istanbul, Ankara, we will take the university to their feet." Made these before why? Why were these not done during the time of parliamentary democracy? You just have this? Cernak, isn't it? Didn't we take the university there? Mush. Didn't we take the university there? After that, they say the Kurdish problem. What is the Kurdish problem? In my speech in Diyarbakir in 2005, I said, there is no Kurdish problem in this country. If there is, I'm responsible for this, and we'll figure it out, I said. Praise be to Allah, we have solved this. Erdogan, who drew attention to the previous and now state of transport infrastructure in southeast and eastern Anatolia, continued his words. Who made them pits and paved them with pits? Aren't they the ones who walked around on behalf of my Kurdish brothers? Aren't they the ones who destroyed our mosques? I call out to those who say why the trustee is appointed while they are doing this, and they were unfortunately the ones who sent the opportunities they received from the state to the mountain. And because they sent him to the mountain, they did not stay with him, and they dug holes. We are still continuing with the energy, health, education, justice, and safety of the entire region from head to toe with these trustees, and we have made arrangements here. Those who went to that area 15 to 20 years ago don't know when they left now. Why? There is a completely different Diyarbakir, there is a completely different Siirt, there is a completely different Hakkari, there is a completely different Cernak. More knew we were there. Because we exist to serve this nation. We have come to this nation especially for peace, where there is terror, where there are terrorists, we are here to crush their heads. Erdogan, who said that they did not exclude and otherize anyone, provided that they were not involved in terrorism, on the contrary, said that they tried every way to pave the way for the transition from terrorism to legitimate politics, they made every sacrifice. Erdogan stressed that despite the fact that the terrorist organization with the character of Scorpio wasted this opportunity by inserting itself, they have started a completely new era in Turkey by strengthening their heart connection with people in the region, said. We have never left the path of democracy and law when fighting guardianship, when countering attacks by terrorist organizations from inside and outside our borders, when challenging coups, when breaking international sieges. And yet, behind the fact that someone comes out and tries to show Turkey in a completely different photo, we look for an ulterior motive beyond injustice. Everyone who has a little conscience and permission already knows that the intentions of the European and American circles that do this are certainly not to advocate for freedoms, they are acting on other agendas. Erdogan, especially the CHP, where those who advocate similar views are fed, personally profess the owners of the business, he said. Come on, we understand the sworn enemies of Turkey. Come on, like the CHP, we understand their shooters inside. How about some of the people we've been fighting with for years on the same train? What? Why are they still in prison? I don't think we can reward them. On the one hand we call justice, on the other hand we say justice, so many dead, so unfortunately kidnapped on the mountain in front of the HDP building in Diyarbakir now overturned the years, who will return the right to the mothers who sit without saying summer and winter? Look who's going to tell them that we've sought your right, found it, and now we're returning it to you. Why does the government exist? Why should we have? Guys, this is what we're for, we'll handle it. Even more, of course, it really offends me to go further and recommend that everyone read the book written by one of these terrorists. The person who said that everyone should read his book is a politician's masked defender of a terrorist organization that pursues separatism with the blood of thousands of Kurdish brothers, soldiers, police, teachers in its hands.